I pretended to be gay in order to rent an apartment, and it was the best. So this happened about some time ago. I was to start university, and the town where my uni was located was notoriously hard to get a place to live in. I am not an American, by the way, so dorms are not really a thing here. After a lot of searching, I grew more desperate. I saw an ad looking for a fourth roommate. The place was at a great location close to my uni. Rent was really affordable, and the place looked great. The only caveat was that they were looking for another girl. It thought, what the hell? Got nothing to lose, and starting date were getting closer. I called the number listed to inquire. When they heard my voice, they were immediately hesitant, but here is my morally gray action. I told them I understood the notice, but I only called because I was 100% gay and thought that I might ask. I also said that I would put in a considerable deposit and that I was a great cook that loved to make big dinners for everyone. That part is true. She said that she would check with the others and get back to me. I was not hopeful, but the next day she called me and said, "All right, you can have the room." Apparently the others were okay with a gay man, and apparently having a man around could have other benefits. So I moved in, and yeah, it was a great time. The girls were fun and really cool to hang out with. We had great parties, no quarrel about cleaning and dishes, etc. But the very best part in my very young mind was how relaxed all the girls were. They talked a lot about guys, detailed their sex life with boyfriends or hookups. The clothing was very relaxed. Not saying they were nudist, but definitely not bothering that much with bras or towels, etc. I have not seen this many boobs in my life. They often even pity me for laughs, saying it's almost a shame that I was gay because it would be every straight guy's dream. No, I never slept with them, and we didn't have hot, steamy group sex. This is real life, guys, haha. But they did cuddle up to me during movie nights on occasion, wanting me to scratch their back or play with their hair, back rubs, etc. They also said it was so nice to have a guy around that they knew didn't try to get into their pants, but was just being genuinely nice. This made me feel bad every time they said something similar. The obvious downside was that I could not bring any girls home with me, nor could I really have a relationship during this time. I even on occasion played gay porn to keep up the facade, but in my mind at the time it was worth it. So yeah, this is my confession. I apologize to any real gays out there, and maybe I can get your forgiveness for using your sexuality to get a place to live.
I accidentally the bed in front of my boyfriend. Me had just gotten in a relationship with my new sweet boyfriend. A little info about me. I have a chronic stomach wound which pops up whenever I'm really stressed. The relationship was very new, so we were both still quite shy. We had just gotten comfortable enough farting in front of each other though, and often made a joke out of it. About a month into our relationship, I had to go to the hospital with my stomach wound. I was there for a week and he was super supportive the whole time. When I finally got home from the hospital, my body was so weak, I wasn't allowed to drink or eat anything the whole week because of the tests they had to make. Therefore my body had pretty much shut down, nothing had come in, so nothing came out. I got prescribed some laxatives that I took, never having taken them before. I didn't know what to expect, but it definitely wasn't this. We were laying in bed, I was on my side looking at my phone, and he was half sitting up in bed playing RuneScape on his laptop in front of me. I could feel a fart coming, so I looked up into his eyes with a smirk face expression and said, "I'm shit." I meant to say, "I'm farting," but the words came out wrong. And so did something else. The moment I said it, I let it all out, still with a smirk face expression, looking him right in the eye. You could hear a wet bubbly sound, and I instantly knew what had happened. My smile faded and my face turned to horror. My hand flew down to stop the flow, but it was too late. Boyfriend jumped up and ran to the toilet to bring me paper. He helped me clean up while just laughing hysterically. I was so embarrassed that I couldn't even say anything. Later when we sat and talked, he told me that it was the most intimidating thing he had ever experienced. The way I looked right into his eyes, he had never felt so dominated in his life. Like a monkey sitting in its hand and throwing it. Needless to say, we got very quickly comfortable with intimate things like that after this. Even though we've broken up since then and it's been a few years, I'm to this day still just as embarrassed.
I shit my pants during job interview last week. It sounds unbelievable, but that's exactly what happened. Just before the interview, I felt an urgent need to use the bathroom, but hoped I could hold it for the 10 minutes before the interview. I was mistaken. I had a severe stomach issue and ended up having a bowel movement right before the interview. I cleaned myself up quickly and joined the call, but I was still dealing with the aftermath. During the interview with the COO, I could hear my stomach making loud noises, and I was sweating from the discomfort. I hoped it would end quickly, but the COO kept asking questions. Eventually, I couldn't hold it any longer and soiled myself during the interview. Despite the unfortunate situation, the COO said I was a great fit for the position and offered me a job with a 3 times higher salary than my previous one, along with excellent benefits. I didn't know whether to laugh or cry at that point. I ended the call, had to replace my chair, and will likely share this story with my grandchildren in the future. It was a terrible experience, but ended with an incredible outcome. My coworker called in sick, but I swear I saw him at a crime scene on the news. So, this happened last week, and I still can't stop thinking about it. I work at this small office, and we're a pretty tight-knit group, so when someone calls in sick, it's usually not a big deal. But my coworker, Mark, called in on Thursday with this over-the-top, dramatic voice, saying he had the flu and could barely move. I wished him well and moved on with my day. That night, I was eating dinner and half watching the local news when something caught my attention. They were covering a robbery at a gas station a few miles from my place. The footage was grainy, but they showed this dude in a hoodie and mask sprinting out of the store. He was tall, had the same build as Mark, and the kicker? He had this distinct limp. Mark had twisted his ankle the week before. At first, I laughed it off. I mean, what are the odds, right? But then they interviewed a witness who said the guy drove off in a silver car. Mark drives a silver Honda. I started feeling that weird mix of disbelief and, oh crap, is this real? The next day, Mark comes into work, walking perfectly fine, by the way. I casually asked how he was feeling, and he goes, oh, way better. Just needed some rest. But here's the thing. He was weirdly specific about what he did while he was sick. Like, oh, I just laid on the couch, watched some Netflix, drank Gatorade. Nothing exciting. Now, I didn't say anything because, what do you even say? Hey, did you rob a gas station? But I swear, every time I catch him glancing at me, it's like he knows I know. The kicker? Yesterday, someone brought donuts to the office and Mark joked, if I ever robbed a store, it'd be for these. Everyone laughed, but I couldn't even look at him. I'm not saying he did it, but I'm not saying he didn't. I lost my V-card to a 37-year-old woman, and now a 14-year-old girl has reached out to me claiming I'm her father. It has been a weird couple of days for me, and I need to get this off my chest. This all started on Friday when I got a Facebook message from an old colleague telling me my daughter was trying to get in contact with me. I hadn't heard from this person in years, so I was skeptical at first, but I decided to hear them out. The girl in question has recently lost her mother to cancer, and the man who she thought was her father turned around and told her she wasn't his and kicked her out. She moved in with her uncle thankfully, but ever since she's been looking for her real dad. Anyways, around 15 years ago, I was a naive young man barely in my 20s working in a supermarket. When I started, I was buddied up with a 37-year-old woman who was drop-dead gorgeous. Like I said, I was rather naive, so obviously I instantly became infatuated with her easygoing and tactile demeanor. Sadly, only a month after I started that job, she handed in her notice, and that spurred me to go for it and ask her out on a date. She laughed and agreed, and so started the wildest 3 months of my life. I won't go into details, but we were intimate on a handful of occasions, and I even stupidly confessed my love to her. But it was then she told me she was moving away to be with her fiancé, which left me absolutely heartbroken. Later, a colleague would tell me that she was also seeing a guy who worked on the checkouts at the same time she was seeing me. Back to the present day, and I had all but forgot about it. I have 2 kids and a very pregnant wife to think about after all, so this has somewhat knocked me sideways. I feel for the kid having her whole world torn apart so abruptly, but the thing is I don't think I'm her father. Though I was young and foolish, I always used protection, but there is a part of me that hopes I am, as I can provide the loving family that she is so desperately looking for. I haven't told my wife yet because she is 8 months pregnant with our 3rd child and has enough to worry about, but I have arranged a paternity test. Another thought that crossed my mind that she is contacting me first because I am the better prospect, as I went on to bigger and better things while the other guy still works on the checkouts at the same store 15 years later, and from what I've been told has a bit of a problem with alcohol. I'm also angry at the man who raised her, playing dad all those years only to callously abandon her when she needed him the most. I'm also angry and sad that I might have missed out on so much of my potential daughter's childhood. The wife knows something's up, so I think I'm going to bite the bullet and tell her. I just had to get this off my chest. For now, I have an update on the situation. So I sat my wife down and told her everything this morning like most of you have been suggesting. After giving me a severe tongue lashing for not telling her sooner, my wife said probably the most sensible thing I've heard, which is I should try and contact the girl's uncle to verify her story. And boy, am I glad I did. You see, I had made one fatal assumption, which was that the stepfather was the same person as the fiancé. Turns out checkout guy found out about the baby and claimed she was his. The fiancé broke things off after finding out about her infidelity and decided to move abroad. Checkout guy got a paternity test when the girl was born, and he wasn't the father, but he only did it to try and get back together with her, which obviously failed miserably. The stepfather didn't come along until a year or two later after the girl was born. He's been having a hard time dealing with the death of his wife, and after a particularly bad argument decided the best thing was for the girl to go and stay with her uncle, who is an absolutely lovely guy, and actually remembered me even though I had only met him briefly in the past. Anyway, she is happy and safe at her uncle's. It's close to her school and she gets on well with her cousins. The crazy thing is that they weren't actually looking for me. I just happened to have the same first name as the fiancé. The young lady jumped the gun in getting in contact with me, but they are 99% sure that the fiancé is her father. This is when my wife made another sensible suggestion. God, I love that woman so much, and asked for the girl's birthday so we can match up the dates, and they don't quite match up, but I'm still going through with the paternity test just in case. The thing is, now I have to put up with the odd rendition of Billie Jean from My Beloved, which is probably going to last a few weeks before it gets old. I should explain why I didn't immediately tell my wife about this. You see, I was just panicking about the whole situation, and though she is a caring and understanding woman, she can be rather ferocious. Needless to say, I try not to find myself on the sharp end of her tongue. Also, she is 8 months pregnant, and it has been a difficult pregnancy for her, and I didn't want to add any extra stress. But as many of you have pointed out, it would have only been worse if I had not said anything. So back to the results, and I am not the father. I know some of you have said I should adopt her anyway, but personally I think that would be highly inappropriate. Also, one critical point I forgot to mention is that I actually live in Norway, and she is in the UK, so it wouldn't be practical. However, that isn't the end of the story. Far from it, in fact, because even though I am not her father, we have enough common DNA to be fairly close cousins. This was when it hit me. Cousin Jeff, not his real name. Cousin Jeff, the son of my dad's oldest brother, and is 12 years my senior, and incidentally my wife's stepbrother. He had found out about me and the ex after bumping into us on a night out and promptly told my entire family just to embarrass me. Needless to say, he is a massive dick. Anyway, around the time I was moping around after getting my heart broken, Jeff was making lots of cryptic remarks about sloppy seconds, his words, not mine. I didn't think anything of it at the time because he always enjoyed winding me up and had only been married to his now ex-wife for around 18 months. But now I'm not sure. Jeff has twin daughters in their early 20s who are on good terms with my wife, so we reached out to them first since they know how to handle him. They said they would get him to do a DNA test, even if they had to resort to bully him into it, but as of this moment, that's as far as we know. As for the young lady who contacted me, my wife has been in contact with her every day and has been super supportive. We get on really well with her uncle and his wife, so she may not have found the father she was expecting, but she has found a load of cousins that will welcome her into the family with open arms. I just want to thank everyone who has taken the time to read my posts and send me such supportive messages. Also, I want to apologize if anything sounded a bit odd, since despite being from the UK, I've lived in Norway for nearly 10 years now, and I sometimes forget how to speak English, which is weird. And finally, I think everyone is being a bit harsh on the stepfather, and to be honest, I was in my initial post. For sending the girl to live with her uncle, he isn't coping after the death of his wife, but saw that he was just hurting his stepdaughter, so he sent her away so she didn't have to be around it. From what I've been told, they're going to therapy and hope to mend their relationship, and I wish him all the best because even though he isn't her dad by blood, he's the only dad she's ever known. Anyone who has read my previous post will know that a few weeks ago a 14-year-old girl, Kelly contacted me hoping I was her father. Sadly, I was not, but we did have enough DNA in common to be cousins. Well, I instantly thought of my cousin Jeff since he was the only person who also knew Emma, Kelly's mother. So here is what happened next. Just a note, I'm not using anyone's real name. First, a bit of background on Jeff and I. He is the son of my dad's eldest brother, Jack, and so there is a 12-year gap between us, which may be why he doesn't like me, but every chance he has to upset or embarrass me he's taken. I've already mentioned how 14 years ago he outed my brief relationship with an older woman to the whole family, Kelly's mother, Emma, but that is the tip of the iceberg. He caused a fuss when I moved to Norway to work for his dad. He tried to claim that marrying my wife Inga was wrong because we were step-cousins and has claimed every one of my children are incest babies. I don't know what he thinks incest is. My wife and I are only related by marriage twice over. First, Uncle Jack and Inga's mother, and secondly, our own. Personally, I think he doesn't like the fact that I have a better relationship with his dad and that my children call Uncle Jack Granddad. Needless to say, we don't really talk that much. Back to the present moment, I decided to talk Jeff's daughters, Abby and Rose, about Kelly since Inga is their favorite step-auntie and they know how to handle him. Now I would have posted sooner, but it was then that my wife went into labor a few weeks early and the matter got pushed back in my list of priorities. You'll all be glad to know that both Inga and the baby are perfectly fine. But as that matter all set down, I get a phone call from cousin Jeff, not congratulating me on the birth of my son, but rather a foul-mouthed tirade about minding my own business. To get to the crux of the matter, Kelly is his daughter. He's known since she was born as Emma forced him to get a paternity test. He signed away his paternal rights and gave Emma £30,000 to never darken his door again. He admitted all this to his daughters after a week of bullying him into telling them the truth. I don't know why Emma never told Kelly about this before she died, but I'm sure she had her reasons. The fallout of this revelation has been spectacular. Aside from his ex-wife giving him more grief, his second wife isn't too happy that he lied to her, and Uncle Jack is absolutely disgusted with him to the point that Jeff has been written out of the will entirely. This was a particular sore point for Jeff since he was set to inherit quite a large amount of money, which is now going to be divided between Uncle Jack's 3 granddaughters, Abby, Rose, and now Kelly. Uncle Jack has also invited Kelly and her family over to Norway for Christmas and is keen to build a relationship with his newly found granddaughter. Jeff has been invited too, but whether or not he decides to turn up is another matter. Abby and Rose have already met up with Kelly. Funny thing is, all this time they've only lived a few miles apart from each other. The thing is, Jeff blames me for exposing him, claiming I should have talked to him first before telling his daughters, who in turn told their mother and in turn told the whole family. I cannot deny that it is quite satisfying to see him squirm since he has caused me so much grief in the past, but I am not a petty person and only approached his daughters because I knew he'd tell me to bugger off. Though aside from the one phone call, he hasn't harassed me any further, so hopefully that continues to be the case. But with cousins Jeff, you can never be sure what he'll do.